I'm back. Well, who do we have here today? Let's see. Christina and Cheryl. Hello, Cheryl and Dwayne. Let's see, Annette and Joyce. John. Hello, John. Hey, are you on Liz Steele's virtual tour of Italy? It's going on this week?
I've been sort of following it. I've been following another person, Mike Bodden. He works with Liz, and he did a virtual tour of Umbria, and this week he's going to do Veneto. So I'm following him because he's doing a sketch a day type of thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
For everyone that's following Urban Sketchers and things, they've been giving talks on Sunday, late Sunday mornings that have been pretty interesting. I listened to one from Matt Brehm and Sherry Blokoff this weekend. That was really good. So they've been doing that every Sunday, I think at 11.
11?
Are they Zooming those?
No, they're on Instagram, and they're recorded too, so that you can watch old ones as well. So, that was pretty interesting.
Are they on location?
It's recording and it's live on Facebook. So I'm sorry, John, I didn't mean to interrupt. So Ken, I'm just letting you know when you're ready, you can start your class.
Okay. Let me get my share screen stuff going here. There it is. There. Guess we'll turn this thing on. Slideshow from the beginning. Okay, we're doing composition and depth. I'm kind of I've been doing about 2 general classes at a time this time, since we're not doing a lot of drawing. Probably if I teach this again, I'd like to do it where we're kind of sketching along with each other here and painting and what have you. But here we're talking about composition, and just to start off with this first picture here, this is a circular composition that I did. These are 16 by 20 frames, and as you can see, each composition by itself has to work, but then they all 4 have to work together, so we have this circular visual thing going on. We have these birds. Here we got this limb going over here to this one and connecting. This bird here to the butterfly. We have these limbs going up here, connecting these birds, and over to these birds and back down the trunk in a circle of birds. So that's just a compositional device there that we can see. And then in each one of these, we try and have some sort of a composition going on with the birds kind of looking at each other here and here and down here. And this small bird kind of weighting these higher birds up. Can you not see me? Can everybody see me? One hopes.
Yes, I can. You're
okay,
thumbnail on the bottom.
Your slideshow. It's on the introductory page, though. I don't know if you've changed pages since then, or if you're still
okay. I haven't
on
changed
the birds.
it. Okay, now I changed it. Okay. Gloria was just telling me she couldn't see anything, so not sure what's going on with her there. So we're doing design here. The main idea, we're trying to make an interesting page to look at. And it's making interesting, appropriate shapes and putting them in a place where people will look. So that's what we want to do. Plato said, it's beauty I seek, not beautiful things. And you can have a lot of beautiful things, like down in this photo right here. All kinds of beautiful things, but if they're not well arranged, they're not very interesting. And if you have even commonplace, mundane things, as in this painting on the right, you know, you can arrange them and you have a really nice painting. But really, it's in how we arrange things on our page that has a lot to do with how this is going to look when you're finished. So you want to give it a little bit of thought before you dash in and start painting and all. The first decision you have to make is what kind of formats you're going to use. Even though you often have a rectangular sketchbook, you don't have to necessarily use it in that way. Most common, of course, are the rectangles here, portrait and landscape. These work well. They're working for you already compositionally because one side's longer than the other, and that gives you a bit of a head start. With a square, it's a little harder because already you're dealing with maybe something boring that's equal on all sides. I used to have to work a lot in squares, and that's where I didn't mind it, but a lot of people don't like to do that. Circle is another compositional format. You don't see a lot of circular paintings. You know, you can. Portraiture is where you'll see that mostly, and ovals as well. A lot of old photographs from the 1800s and early 1900s were in oval frames and flattened ovals when there was more than one person. A lot of times 2 or 3 people, they'd put them in a flattened frame like that one on the end there. You can also have some kind of really different frames. Here's one I used to frame this boat. I wanted to draw a sailboat one day, so I just drew the sailboat, and it needed something to make it interesting, and so I gave it a different kind of a format framing on that to improve the composition. I balanced it with these bars here, bring some of the weight of this over here over to this side, so it wouldn't look like it was going to dump all the water out of the ocean on the left. And I like to illustrate poems sometimes, and this is a couple of stanzas from Yeats' Sailing to Byzantium, which was kind of appropriate for the virus and everything going on. That's no country for old men. That we got to divide up our space is the way we approach a composition after we know what kind of format we've got. Commonness, well, the most common page division is a third of the way down on the bottom here. And this will be like a horizon line. It could be the ocean, could be anything. This could be land, this could be sky. But that's a very common one that works. And one reason it works is it's not symmetrical. If we put it down like down here at the bottom corner, right through the middle, it's boring because both sides are the same. And it divides the picture in half. And we don't really want to do that. We want people to look at the whole picture, not half a picture at a time. So we don't want to do that. Another thing we want to avoid is placing vertical objects right on the edge of the frame. This really causes problems. Really kind of locks the frame down. It doesn't really look quite right. So tree trunks are usually a mistake a lot of people make, is putting a straight tree trunk right there. Not a good idea. Here we can use this division up here, and it's really useful for a lot of things. And this one, if you like to paint clouds, this is the way to go. Just a little bit of land down here and all sky. So that could be the ocean or anything else like that. Angles work exactly the same thing. You wouldn't want an angle from one corner to the other that would say a hillside or something like that. You want to somehow have that broken up into unequal segments. And you can have lots of segments leading the eye around a picture frame. This one definitely leads the eye right up to here. You also have a focal interest point here. Anywhere you've got a lot of intersections going on down here, you're going to have little bits of interest point. The main interest in this diagram is right up here in this third. And again, thirds are important. We'll be looking at that. Shapes, they don't have to be complex shapes in your sketch. In fact, they can be very, very strong when they're simple shapes. And a lot of really good painters use very basic shapes. But for a lot of us, add a little complexity to your shapes, and it'll add a little bit more interest to your painting. And we like to combine shapes. And it's really nice to combine an angular shape with a smoother shape. You can see this upper left-hand corner drawing, you know, this is kind of dull. Both of them are pretty basic, not much going on with them. But we can add, like over here, we can add a more complex shape and add interest to our little diagram. We can add a little perspective to it over here on the middle left photo, and even add a little bit more. So you can rearrange things. You can add depth to it, like we'll be talking about here by having something in front of and behind an object. So we can do a lot about that. Really, we're wanting to contrast shapes. Everything the human eye sees is based on contrast. The color is just really secondary. Color kind of zaps your eye and covers up what's really being seen in a lot of ways, but it's not near as important as tone and contrast, especially in our paintings. That's why it's a good idea, if you're having trouble with that, is to use your computer, your phone, and convert your photo or your sketch, even take a picture of your painting and put it into black and white and see if you have a good tonal range. Always a good thing to do. With shape dominance in a composition, you know, you want dominance of certain shapes, but you want variety within that. So although one shape might dominate, you want others providing supporting roles, things like that. You know, what's more boring, all this tract housing where it's identical in this picture, you can see. You know, it's just very monotonous. Whereas here, if we have a larger, here's our main object here, shape, these houses, and then the supporting roles being broken up by this vegetation into interesting shapes. So we have that going on, and we have these shapes directing the eye through this picture. I love this light green bit of grass or whatever that might be. Just this nice S-curve going right up to underneath that pergola and over to this patio area. So we want to generally vary our shapes, not always. Sometimes this is exactly what you want. You know, there's been a lot of cases, especially if you want to put something, make it recede into the background. You may not want to put a whole lot of detail and complexity into it. But this down here is generally more interesting. It's just, you know, a variety of shape, a variety of tones, so that it gives the eye something to kind of rest on, look at, focus on. We tend to look at something like the painting above and quickly move on because we've taken it in. We've seen all there is to see in that. We know we've got round blobs with sticks on them. And that, for our mind, symbolically, those are trees, and that's all we need to know. Locations, most people will know this, but I do want to bring it up. These intersections of thirds, these are where your focal point in general will work the best. Not always, and there's some good reasons to put the focal point elsewhere and make some very powerful pictures doing that. Any of these rules on composition can always be broken, but you kind of need to know what they are and then have a reason, know why you're breaking when you do it. So this is based on some geometrical formulas, but they're not at all necessary. If you divide a page up with roughly thirds, both directions, you're going to get a center of interest area there that works very well. Any of these circle places are good places to put your most important part of your painting. The rule of threes is really interesting to me. A lot of you know about the three bears, Mama Bear, Papa Bear, and Baby Bear. You know, when you put in trees or anything like that, you want, you know, 3 different sizes. But also you can make entire compositions based on threes. You can see this space up here at the top left. It's divided into 3 segments of different sizes. And here, right here, we're on about the third area. That circled third, we have a point of interest, and that's where all of these come together. And this little sketch on the right shows you this three portioned area. Same thing over here with 3 trees, 3 hills, 3 clouds. And you can make a sketch with 3 clouds, 3 trees, 3 hills, 3 land divisions, all in the same sketch, and it will work just fine. And you'll have a fairly balanced, interesting looking sketch. So this rules of 3 always seems to work. And odd numbers, for some reason, always seem better in groupings than even ones. Even with a large number, it seems like an odd number is better. That may just be me, but I always go with odd. Great rule there. Repetition is good. It gives your painting unity. It likes the whole thing belongs together. Although I've seen some paintings where everything was just totally different and a million different shapes, and they're interesting to look at, but they kind of make your eyes fuzzy after a while, and they don't always hang together really well. So you can have too many and they're confusing. As you can see down here, they don't look like this picture is really related, the one on the left here. But the one on the right, even though we're looking at these abstract blocks, it looks like it's related because we mostly have these similar shapes with just a few of these circles and ovals here to break up the monotony. If we had all the same shapes, then it might start getting boring again. So we want to think about limiting the kind of shapes we have, but not making it so we want one shape. We need to think about balance. This is something that you just get an intuitive sense of after a while. It's not like there's formulas for this, but if you look at a picture that's out of balance, it will look wrong. And I'll show you some examples later on of how I've had to correct my own because of this. But as you can see in this picture at the top here, everything is all to one side. It looks like it's going to weight the picture down, and you're going to have to hold it up or it's going to fall out of the frame. Even a small dark object against a large light object will balance it out. You can see this pulls the picture back over straight. It's just like a little child balancing on a long beam here. It'll balance the big guy because of its position on the other side. If this small dark object were right next to this tree, you can see that would really sink it, and it would drop even farther in your mind. So you kind of have to juggle these around so that you can get your picture balanced. And it's just something, it'll come. When you see it, you'll know it's wrong if it's very far off. So it's not something to worry too much about, but as you're planning your composition, you need to think about that. And especially where you're going to place your darks. We do need darks and that tonal variation in our painting. And a lot of times if we're a little heavy on the lights on one side seems a little heavy and out of balance, we can place a few spot darks here and there on the other side, and that will bring the composition into balance. And here's just a little fun exercise. I just love this. But look up here at the first frame up here, number 1. This is in balance. It's just sitting there. But look what happens on number 2 when we add this black square. Now it's out of balance. It wants to tip off this way over to the right. If we go to 3, we can turn this one dark. And now we're getting a little better. It's still out of balance. So it still feels like this one up here is going to pull the whole composition over. How about if we add just a touch more? Here is this little square right here. It's still getting better, but it's just not good enough yet. It's still looking out of balance. So here, let's add one more. Okay, now we've got these 3 here, and now we're pretty well balanced with this block. For me, I would probably still add one more. I just don't feel like it's quite balanced, but and while you look at number 6 here, all right, this bottom right-hand corner block has been lightened. And now look what happens to the whole composition. Now it looks like it's ready to topple over for sure, over to the right. So you can just kind of play with these things in your sketch and kind of look at them. Again, use your squint and just kind of think about balance and what your picture doing. And you can adjust these. Even if you have to make up a shadow, you can do that. You can make up a dark area, whatever you need to balance that tonal Here is a good example of symmetry that really works and makes a statement. See, this is really a balanced picture. People are right in the middle of it. The house is in the middle of it. We have equal sides. About the only thing out of balance is the horizon line down here, which is not exactly halfway through. But this is called the family unit, and it's made this way, just demonstrating the family's circumstances of impoverishment and how they're stuck in it. And this symmetrical balance just sort of increases that suggestion of stasis and inability to move. And so it makes this a more powerful painting because of that. So I thought that was a good example of where symmetry actually works. So a lot of times it doesn't, most of the time it doesn't, but you can use it to say what you want to say by using symmetry when it's useful.
Right, but
Here's another one.
the very large sky.
Yes.
I'm going to say that the
Yeah.
very
Very
large
large.
sky and the imbalance of the foliage on the right side versus the left sort of saves it.
Mm-hmm. That's about all the imbalance you see in the whole painting. Everything else is fairly equal. So, and the sky makes them look more vulnerable too. If you'll notice, having this huge sky makes them seem smaller. And so they're more vulnerable by being smaller. And that's another way of impacting the statement that this painting is making. I really like this one with these balanced posing rock masses here. It's a very symmetrical painting in a lot of ways, but nonetheless, really beautiful painting, very tonal. We got a really great tonal range in here from whites all the way to black, and yet it's still symmetrical. So it works really fine, a lot of energy in this. So a great way of using this balance and making it all work out. Actually, we've got this extra white over here, if you'll notice, in this splashing wave. So he's had to put in a little extra dark over here to balance that out compared to this side here. And this is an active side, and this is a passive side. The main dynamics and activity of the painting are happening here. And so over here we have a quiet side. And that's always good in a lot of your paintings to have an active area and a quiet area for the eye to rest. Even in sketching the human figure, you're going to have an active dynamic side and you're going to have a passive resting side in any kind of a position a human will take unless they're just standing perfectly straight, rigid, up and down. So you can improve your figure composition by thinking about that and having an active side when you do that. You can see if I've got my arm up here stretched over, the other one is resting on this armchair. So this one that's stretching over is active, whereas this side is passive. And it just makes a more interesting sketch even when you're doing human figures. And here's some negative space. This is another way of adding interesting shapes to your painting. Look for these negative spaces or build them in, not just with a figure, but with anything you might want to draw and sketch. These can add to it. These can be little touches of dark if you're needing a dark area or whatever. A good example in landscape painting is the sky holes in trees. As you put, especially up near the top, there are negative spaces, and you can make these interesting, or you can make them boring. Just whatever you choose. You could make them all circles or squares if you want. Here's a good example of contrast and how important it is. Sharp contrast just really attracts the eye. And one of the biggest mistakes I see beginning sketchers make is not emphasizing contrast. A lot of times they're afraid to get too dark, and so everything is pretty much the same. And when everything is the same, you can see it just receding into the background there, and in the background of your mind as well. Whereas here, because of this contrast, we've really got these things popping out here, and you're paying attention, and they're sharply delineated. So it makes a real difference, and really keep that in mind, especially on your focal point. You really want it there. And again, just like shape balance, there's value balance. Here we have too much on the right over, or left over here, just too heavy. Here we have our symmetry. It's just perfectly balanced. Each same tone on each side and the dark in the middle, not going anywhere. Just do it the opposite and you've got the same problem. It's just heavy on both sides now instead of in the middle. So what you want is something that's asymmetrical generally, but balanced. By using this little square at the bottom all the way over, as far as we can get it here, we can kind of balance out this larger shape on the opposite side. And the mid value here really doesn't much affect that. I suppose if we moved it over here to the right a little bit, it would, but placed in the center like that, you really don't get much of a balancing effect from it either way. So we want to use our values just like we use our shapes so that we can direct the eye where we want the eye to go in the sketch. Line is another great compositional device. There are just so many ways to use it. I thought this was a really good example. This drawing by Paul Cadmus. This was in an old artist magazine from the 40s, I believe it was. But these snow fence lines all direct the eye. Right up here would be the center of focus. We've got this mass of complex lines here making a tonally dark shape right there. We also have this as a detailed focus center of interest too, but still everything is pointing down to here. Even the top of this goes down to here. We've got this fence line going up right into here. Notice how the fence down here at the bottom left corner is all pointing up this way. It's just a really nice composition. We have these boards all sloping over here. Really well done use of line to build a composition. And notice this is in that third space. It's about a third of the way down and a third of the way over here in that. I really like that. I think that's very well done. Even the shadows here are pointing over here, and this shadow going up here leads the eye into the picture with the toes. Very well done. Simplification is something you really need to think about a lot too. So many times, you know, you want to be accurate, you want to put in every single detail, and that's just going to ruin your picture. It'll look boring. When people have seen one brick, they've seen them all. You don't have to put in every brick. A lot of people do, and I've seen great pictures done where every brick is put in and every stone. But often as not, you'll get a better picture without doing that. Just a suggestion, you know, half a dozen bricks scattered here and there in little clumps are all you need. Also, using too much line in any composition like that pretty soon affects the tone. You get enough of those lines making bricks, and pretty soon you've lowered the tone down 3 or 4 values from what the wall might actually be. So that's another thing to consider, especially on a bright wall, is that you will start affecting that. This is a Corot painting, and you can see very simple, simplified this foliage into just masses of blurred color. Very simple. You don't see detail in any of these leaves, just spots of paint. The composition is simple. We have framing here with these trees that lets you look through back into the depths of the landscape here. Here we have things adding to the depth and pointing to the center of interest, which you might not have noticed even. It's this probably church right here in the center. Notice this pole. The punters are in their punt skiff here. Pulling around, this pole points right to here. Also, we have the banks pointing right up into this area here. And we have this bit of contrasting dark roof against the light sky in this composition. Otherwise, very simple, and not a lot went into this, but a very beautiful composition, really well done. Not a lot of detail in anything here, really. So I really like that. I like this as well. This simplification, you know, it leads to abstraction in a way. The more you simplify it, taken out the subtleties of angles in the stone, subtleties of tone, subtleties of shape, and you get a really neat painting. I really like this. Smeltbrook Falls by Marsden Hartley. The colors, he's used his own colors in this. He didn't worry about what was trying to mimic nature or anything like that. So he made them fit with his composition. So we have a little nice warm reddish tones throughout the whole thing. And the only other color really is black and white. Maybe a little green right here, if you'll notice, as a complement. About the only complement here, and a bit of blue, tad bit. But mostly we've got a red, black, and white image there. And I think that works really well. Here's another great composition. I really love this. It's such, huge, massive shapes, very simple. We don't have a lot of complexity in this at all. And yet you've got these strong perspective lines. Look how they just lead you straight to this tower. And notice how dark this is on this side of the tower, how light it is here. We get a little bit of gradated shading down here. But if you'll notice right here at the edge, see that white line? If he had brought that gray all the way over, then you wouldn't see that contrast that you can see when that's white. So that's really important, not to bring the tone all the way over so that it's merging with this really dark area, because it maintains that contrast. And you see as you get up, it's even more so. And we've got a really good contrast over here. And we have good contrast between the shaded side and the sky. He's left some light cloud areas in here. And notice he's put the dark areas in each corner up here of the sky. And that keeps the eye into the picture. And of course, naturally, you're going to have darker areas as you go up, as we've talked about before. But this is just a compositional device to keep your eye in the painting. So we've got dark corners at both sides here. You don't always have to do that. One dark corner is a lot of times enough, and you'll have a gradation that way over something lighter on the other side. But same down here, we've got a pretty dark area here. Again, a fairly simple shape leading us over to this. But really some great triangular shapes in here. Notice even the shadow here, how it's triangular. I just think this is just really a great painting. And then we get this surreal sort of a look in the clouds, like a dimple kind of look, like something's punching through from the other side. And that's created by putting these shadows right down here in this painting here and here, and the shadow over here. Very interesting. I really like that. A lot of these paintings coming from about the very early 1930s. And that was an interesting time for painting in the United States. It was right before abstractism became so popular. And they were really trying some interesting things. Here's just a little sketch showing, again, using perspective. It's a great tool for making strong sketches. You see, this is looking down a very steep walk going down to a harbor down here, and this walk will lead the eye right down into these houses and out. So you can use a perspective for a lot of things besides just getting your buildings correct. They make a really good compositional device that you can use for moving the eye around. This is framing, and this is something we talked a little bit about when we were talking about arches, if you'll remember. Arches make a really good frame. But trees are really good, like Corot used in that earlier painting we looked at. People like to look through things, and part of that is a feeling of safety. I believe you're looking out of something, so you're probably protected from behind. Maybe you're in a cave looking out of a cave door. Maybe we're harking back to something very primeval there. But it feels protected to look out of something, out a window, out curtains. Trees, arches, just about anything like that with a frame. People like to do that. They like to look out of things. So, analyzing your own compositions. Here's one I did at MacArthur. We all were on our urban sketching trip for that day. And this is my first sketch here of this. what's wrong with it? I can think of lots of things wrong with it. Yes, for one thing, I was in a hurry to get my stamp stamped. I really like these stamps, by the way. So I had one here and I put one up here. And why did I do that? That really messed it up. Look how that dark bit here just made this whole thing want to tip over, and especially since I had made this building at kind of an angle anyway. So I just really tipped it over further and didn't have anything weighting it back here. I put this down here, but that really didn't help nearly enough. So I painted the monument to begin with and just figured, oh, that'll be a nice center of focus anyway, you know. And so that helped, you know, it keeps your eye focused in this area so things weren't quite as tippy as they were, but it still wasn't what I really wanted. So from there, I added a shrub over here and painted this tree, and that helped a bit. But then I painted this tree and that messed it up. But now it's tilting more because I got this weight up here pressing down on the building. So what do we do then? Well, we got this. I painted in the whole building. That really weighted it down from this tower. So it's still tilting over here. You'll notice I got rid of that stamp. I just painted it out. There it is right there, a hint of it. You can kind of see. So took care of that. That did help a lot. Got our tree here, but I still wasn't happy with it. So I just went ahead and added a whole new tree right here in front. And that really helped. That brought some more weight down over here. And you can see it's kind of balancing it out now. And so that's about as good as that was going to get. Something I could have done that would have improved it is, if you'll notice, I've got my clouds going in at an angle this way. If I'd had a counter thrust and made my clouds come this way, notice that would angle down to this roof and kind of hold that in place better, and probably would have balanced it off better. I think a lot of times if you've got a roof angle at an angle like this going down, it really helps to have the clouds going down the opposite way to kind of hold that in. You know, it's not a rule that you have to do that, but it's a way of creating some balance if you don't feel like you've got it. It's something to keep in mind. You can always manipulate your skies. Remember, you don't have to paint just what's there. Even if it's a blue sky day, it doesn't have to be. So that's what I ended up doing, and some of my thoughts on that composition there. Another thing on this composition is you'll notice the sunlight, how I painted it in here. The first thing I did when I set up is I took a photo because I really liked the way the shadows and sun were at that time of day. By the time I'd finished working on this sketch and getting this guy painted in here, those shadows had totally changed and it weren't near as interesting to look at. So make a record of stuff like that if you're wanting a particular lighting situation. So at least you can come back and kind of replicate that if you don't get finished in time. Now you can use your sketches and make other sketches from them. So here's a composition I made. And you see, you don't have to quite stay with reality on these things. You can make things move around a bit. Feeling a little woozy mood that day, I guess. But that still didn't quite hold my interest. For one thing, there's not a lot of tonal contrast in this if you take a look. So I added a big black cloud here. And what that did is it added a lot of weight to this side, for one thing. But it also added a bit of suspense and mystery. What is that black cloud? Why is it coming? You know, why is it there? Titling it the big black cloud means that, you know, it must be something there, and it is a cloud. It could be smoke from a fire, who knows? But anyway, just add some suspense and something to what's going on, and makes your picture tell more of a story. So that's another thing you want your compositions to do a lot of times is tell a bit of a story about where you're at or what you want to say or anything like that. So anyway, this gives us kind of a surreal look, and I don't know, to me it's as interesting as the original, maybe in different ways. So choosing a composition, here's a big photo of a harbor. Crail Harbor here, my usuals I use. And this is just an example of all the compositions you could pull from this. Just this one photo. A lot of things. A lot will depend on time. How much time do you have? You couldn't draw the whole thing if you only had a few minutes, probably. So you want to narrow it down maybe. Here's some sections you could take with these interesting boats kind of bringing your eye in this way. You got a wall going up here. Maybe this would be your center of focus, this house. I'd probably want to do something to that white wall so it wouldn't just be white, so plain and white. But that's one. Here's another one. I think this is probably a better composition. This is in a nice location here. We're in our third sort of area right in there. We've got some foreground interest in the boats and water. Background, we could change the sky a bit. Here, you know, this works. This is on the thirds, but you know, it looks like it's all the action. Everything's running off the page to me in this composition. I'd much prefer this house over here with these buildings sloping up like they're doing up this street where you could see that. This looks like you're losing a lot of stuff. Other ways to do that, I moved it over here, you can see. And also, I just can't really see my tower. There we go, tower. I actually moved this tower over a bit from where it was to get it into the picture because it was more interesting and broke up the skyline a bit. So you can do that. See, in this one down here at the bottom, the tower was lost. And so you can change that sort of thing around, move things in, chop them up when you make your sketch. Here's some here, but I left this in here because notice the background building here, how it just totally blends in with the building behind it. If I were making a sketch of this, I would really contrast this wall here with this building, either making it dark and in shadow, making this one very light. Something needs to be done to bring that out. And you can see it the same in the top right up here too. We really want to do something about that. But we do have an interesting skyline in that, and that always helps too. And you can always move these trees around to bring contrast to wherever you want to. Depth, running out of time. I think I'll just have to do this next week. From what I can tell, my timer says we are up. Is that right, Gina? Are we just out of time?
It's up to you. We have 20 minutes until our next class that I have to moderate, but if you have about 10 minutes of material and then want to take 10 minutes of questions, that's fine, however you want to do it.
I think we better take questions because I've got more than that. I just really took a lot of time talking today for some reason. Sorry about that, everybody.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome.
There's handouts available for this. And also there were a couple of earlier talks that there weren't handouts, and I just emailed those to y'all. And so you can put those up with too. There'll be handouts with each of these. And
Okay.
There'll be some handouts on depth from this one that I'll just have to talk about another time.
That's
So
awesome.
next time we're going to talk about depth, since I didn't this time. And we're going to talk a little bit more about unity and I have one other topic, and that will wrap up our course here for this 8 weeks. But by the time we get through the next class, we ought to be able to really think about our compositions and really, when we look at a painting, really know what's going on in that painting. And maybe you'll see things you haven't seen before when you go to the art museum. I know I do. Every time I look, I see something different, and I go, oh, I know what that person was doing now. And you can do these things too. So any questions?
I don't see any questions in the chat. Janet said that you gave a lot of great information. Lynn asked if the handouts will remain on our website long-term, and the classes that we have currently that are timeless, we hope to keep on our website for a long time. Things that are maybe of a political nature and maybe not so timely, in a few months we'll take off so that we can keep the website updated. But I anticipate Ken's items staying on for a long time. I just want to thank Ken, and also, go ahead.
Excuse me.
Yes, James, go ahead.
I guess I'll ask a question. I love the presentation. Ken, about 5 or 6 slides back, you were talking about trying to rebalance a painting by adding things because it was tipping to the right, the one where you had the clouds going diagonally and thought maybe if they went the opposite direction.
Yeah.
When I was looking at that tilting of that painting throughout your various evolutions of it, I just tilted my iPhone counterclockwise a little, and all of a sudden it came into balance. So to me, it was how the buildings tilted within the rectangle of the portrait. And it seemed to me that you kept adding things to balance it, when in reality, if I just rotated counterclockwise, it came into balance. I wonder what your thoughts about that are.
Oh yeah, that's the first thing I did in Photoshop. I just took the thing and tilted it back straight. But I didn't want to do that for my talk here, to show how other things you can do to kind of bring that out. And I drew it crooked to begin with. I was out sitting on a stool, and I don't always get things real straight when I'm out doing that. And it's part of sketching outdoors, locations. Things don't always happen straight. Yeah, I could have fixed it really quickly and easily with a little bit of a tilt in Photoshop. But,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. I'm in awe of your ability to articulate these things. I feel like just by osmosis, I could be a great artist tomorrow, which is a dangerous thing because I know it takes practice. And I'm thankful that you've shared your handouts with us, and that we can look at your progress through the images. It's very educational.
Well, thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next week and do some more.
All right. Thank you so much. You all have a good day, and join us for other classes if you can.